Crypto's wild, Mr. G. It's scams, pumps, and NFT flops. My Pixel Ape NFT worth less than my lunch, man.
Yeah, everyone's blinded by moonbeams.
Straight up, we talking Satoshi's vision all the way.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Centbee Show. I'm your host, Lorien and my co-host is Kage, patent pending, Inchingila. Kage, welcome to the show. Good to be back. We've had a bit of a break.
Yo, I think that break was needed, but you know, it kind of felt strange not doing what we do best, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Putting Bitcoin truths out into the interwebs.
Because we have to. I mean, you've seen the past 2 weeks, there was just a lot of content, crazy stuff just floating around, and none that has to do with the truth, you know?
Yes,
Yeah.
well, that's crypto. Crypto's a clown show.
It's
a circus. And, you know, everybody had all these high hopes about the crypto asset reserve and Donald Trump's coming in to make the crypto bros gazillionaires. But that doesn't look like it's happening. In spite of Michael Saylor's attempts to keep the spirit alive.
And my last point to you, you do not sell your Bitcoin. Thank you.
Yeah, telling the world how Bitcoin's going to go to, BTC is going to go to $1 million per coin.
$1 million.
And of course, that's a world that is barely imaginable, although I guess we thought $100,000 was barely imaginable, so it looks like anything can happen.
Hey, Mr. G, people are always pushing this narrative about crypto. You know, they just want to pump their bags, nothing more.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a big pumping bag circus. That's what crypto is. And if you watch this show, you're going to get insights that you don't get in the crypto mainstream.
Fact.
We are very focused, very laser focused on what Satoshi was trying to create when he created Bitcoin, what we call Satoshi's vision. One of the things that hasn't happened in the world is the world hasn't yet had a chance to see if Satoshi Nakamoto was right when he created Bitcoin. Yes, we've got other things called Bitcoin out there today, but that's not Bitcoin. You know, this digital gold, BTC, invest, you know, that's all you ever hear from these exchanges and everybody talking about investments. That's not what Satoshi created.
Yeah.
Satoshi created a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, or a distributed ledger that can do all sorts of amazing things, that can, fill a gap that the internet has had since the dawn of the internet.
So, guys, remember to plug your friends and everyone, you know, that Centbee Show is the realest, man. So, yeah, subscribe, show some love, yeah? Mama money on fire already.
Already,
yo.
Okay.
You know, this week we're talking about IP. Jack Dorsey, he sent out an X post on the 14th, and he stated, delete all IP law. I'd like us to first understand what IP is. You know, maybe you can get us into that.
The tweet, it was delete all IP law, and IP stands for intellectual property.
Yeah.
So it's it's quite a post, you know, especially if he is a businessman and he has intellectual property.
This is not just anyone.
There's not anyone.
Yeah.
So we definitely have to dig into why Jack Dorsey would think that the world would be a better place if we didn't have any intellectual property law. But first of all, let's get stuck into what he means by intellectual property.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about physical property, like a house or a car or a cell phone or a painting, a coffee machine, you know, those are physical objects that somebody can own. That's your property.
Yeah.
And you have the rights to that property. You can access it. You can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah.
You can sell it to whoever you like. You can decide how it gets used. And so people who own property own rights to that thing. Now, physical property isn't the only kind of property that exists. We also have intangible property, or what we call intellectual property.
Yeah.
And those are things that aren't actual objects. If you think about a song, for example, you know, yes, you can have a CD or a record, but at the end of the day, the song isn't a tangible object. You know, it's something that you experience. And so you think to yourself, well, is it property? If somebody makes a song, or if they write a book, is that still property? And does the owner still have rights to that property? And that's the whole basis of what we call IP law, intellectual property law, which goes out to try and protect people. And if you think about law today, law protects people, enforces their property rights. Now, what intellectual property law does is it enforces intellectual property rights. So if you invent something like a song or a new device for doing something, that invention can be protected as if it were your own property, and only you are allowed to access that property.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about IP law, we're talking about all the different rules that are in place to make sure that people who invent things like music or artworks or anything like that, that their right to that artwork is protected.
Yeah.
And that means that they can benefit from that property. They can earn income or they can access it exclusively.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting when you get somebody like Jack Dorsey who says we need to now delete all this, because the basis of our modern world today really is one founded on the idea that people can invent things and their inventions and their creativity is protected.
Yeah.
If you think about Twitter, for example, or if you think about Block, these companies, they have built inventions that support their business.
Yeah.
And those inventions are protected by law. You can't just go and copy X's system and just go and use it. You can't copy the data. You have to get permission. So it is very interesting that somebody like Jack Dorsey is saying, well, we need to go and delete all this law that protects inventors when they are creating things.
We're talking about a person who founded Twitter. He has a couple of, ideas he founded.
Yeah.
So for a person like that to say that, away with IP laws, I feel like he's speaking from a point of privilege.
Right.
Because as a creator, you do find that quite important to be protected in terms of what you produce and put out there.
Jack has been protected by that law to achieve the successes that he has achieved. It's quite ironic that somebody like that who has benefited from that sort of thing would then go and say he wants to delete it. It's more than just Jack who is saying something like this. There are a lot of people out there who believe that if we didn't have intellectual property law, if there were no such things as patents which protect the inventions, then the world would be a better place.
As an innovator, I don't think you would think like that. You just mentioned patents. So now we need to understand how do patents now fall into this.
Now, when we talk about IP law, intellectual property law, there are a number of facets to that. Let's say you've created a song, some music, or you've written a book, or written a poem, or an article, or something like that. Then what you can do is you can copyright that information. And copyright is a way of stating that you have the rights as the owner. You have the rights to that information. That's what a copyright is. Also, if you think about logos, companies have logos that they want to protect. If you create a logo that looks just like the Coca-Cola logo, it's red and it's white and it's cursive. You can't just steal that logo.
But according to Jack, we should.
Yes. Well, he's moving in that direction. So the idea of there is that if you have an image that represents your brand, think about simple things like the Nike swish. You can't go and put a Nike swish on your shoes because that picture has been trademarked. That it represents your brand or your product.
It's somehow a protection of identity of an idea. Can be audio.
Exactly. Even music, jingles, and things like that. Exactly. So that trademark is
identity.
Artwork or a visual representation or musical thing that clearly represents that product or that brand.
So even when something is created, it needs a form of identity to distinguish it from knockoffs.
Yes, exactly. That's how you distinguish your brand. And of course, knockoffs do that all the time. They always try and make the logo slightly different, maybe swap the letters around or something. And so those trademarks are protected, and people who are trying to make a logo seem similar so people will come and buy the product, they get into trouble for doing that.
Because imagine if that was the case, Mr. G, we would be running our own Coke shop.
Exactly. And passing off our beverage as Coke. Exactly. And passing off means pretending to be something you're not. And there's trouble for that, which definitely speaks to the Bitcoin story as well.
Full on.
In fact, we've got an episode about that.
Passing off Bitcoin,
the real Bitcoin. We'll put a link to that show.
And
so trademarks protect that aspect of that business or brand that clearly identifies them. That's a trademark. But patents are now something that's a little bit more detailed and explains the invention or the idea. And so a patent is something that is carefully drawn up. And the point of the patent is to clearly describe and explain what the invention is, so that it can be unambiguously determined that it is something distinct and unique that hasn't been done before.
Yeah.
And a criteria when it comes to creating patents is that it has to be something that is unobvious. If you create an invention that, let's say you want to patent butter on toast, it's obvious, everybody's doing it. You can't go and patent something like that.
Yeah.
And so a patent needs the invention to be unique and novel, a new kind of thing that hasn't been done before. If it's not novel, if people have been using that kind of invention, although it's never been patented before, and it's in what's called the public domain, in other words, people already know about it and see it, then you can't go and patent that either.
Yeah.
So a patent is this clear description or a specification of what that invention is, how it works, and also, very importantly, how it compares to other similar kinds of inventions, or what we call prior art. Things that are kind of the same, but your patent then shows clearly how it is differentiated from the existing invention. And people who go through patents and authorize patents, they need to know, how is your invention different from an existing invention. And so what you end up with a patent is you end up with this amazing document that is publicly available. As soon as you register a patent, that patent is then put online and everybody can now see it. It goes through a process of being pending and then it gets approved.
Yeah.
But now what you have is you've got a publicly available explanation of your invention with diagrams and the components and how things put together and how it works and how you got there.
You need to fully flesh out the idea in terms of what its purpose is, how you even got to that.
Yeah.
Like a full-on document,
Yes.
not just a one-pager with the signature and an idea. This is like a document where after we can access it, we can also maybe rediscover certain things.
Yeah, it's a full comprehensive specification of that invention. And then once that's registered, then you will be granted rights to that invention. And it's a certain number of years. It differs around the world. Let's say give it about 20 years. And the idea there is that then the owner of that patent can then benefit from that. And also, if other people infringe upon that patent, if they use that idea, then the patent holder has rights and can demand fees or licenses or something like that for the other person to use that invention. So the whole idea, though, is to, just like when you have your own property, that you have rights to that property, that only you can use it and only you can benefit from it. The idea of a patent is now a formal way of stating that this novel invention, even if you haven't even produced one working version of it, it's just a diagram, it's just a drawing, it's a schema, it's an explanation. You can now own that and have the rights to that for a certain amount of time. And so that's the purpose of a patent.
Yeah, Monsieur, I mean, he spoke about, deleting all IP law. And the question is, isn't that going to be harmful to creators and inventors? I mean, through our discussion, we've established how important IP law is.
One of the arguments is that when people patent things, it means that you are not allowed to use that invention unless you get permission. Maybe you have to pay a fee to the copyright holder or the patent holder, or get a license, to be able to use that.
Yeah.
And so what Jack is saying is that these are barriers. The fact that you can't go and take somebody's invention and then build on it and improve on it, what it's doing is it's blocking the competition. And he's saying that now competitors won't be able to come and use that invention and improve it and reduce the cost in producing it so that it makes the world a better place for consumers. Because remember, competition is always supposed to bring down the costs of things and improve their quality, because that's why you compete. You're always competing to be able to reduce the price for your customers so that they buy your stuff more and increase and improve the quality. Now, what's going to happen is because you're limited, you're not able to use that patent. It's now creating a block for competitors because now they can't use your novel invention. But if you just think about it, I mean, the whole nature of competition is trying to outthink your competitor.
That's the whole basis of competition, Mr. G. Even
Out-innovate.
Out-innovate, outsmart, whatever. You need to outplay your opponent.
Right.
Not jack from them.
Yes. So, his argument is that it blocks competition because now competition can't take that invention and go and try and find better ways to produce it. He's saying that this is now a competitive block. Well, it's stimulating competition.
That's the fuel right there.
Because now the competitor is not able to just borrow and use the existing idea. They have to go and invent an entirely new, different way of doing something, a whole new process, whole new methodology.
Mr. G, if we look at the black market now, there's a lot of knockoff products.
Yeah.
And we don't look at that as a good thing.
Yeah.
For the fact that people still know and look for the originals, it shows that we all know how, like counterfeit is actually not the way.
Absolutely. You don't want a world of knockoffs. You want a world of novel, new innovations that compete fairly. In other words, it's mind against mind.
If we're talking about an environment like that, that means whoever has more pennies will always come out first.
Yeah.
Because I can jack your idea, because I have the sources and the funds.
Yeah.
I can easily just overtake you.
That's right.
Yeah.
And another issue that Jack has, and people like him, is that it costs a lot of money to patent something. If you want to go and patent an idea, you're going to have to pay lawyers' costs, and you have to pay registration fees, and it can cost thousands of dollars. He thinks that, well, if there were no patents, then people wouldn't have to be paying that money, and little startups and entrepreneurs wouldn't have to pay that money. But if your idea is valuable, then you are going to pay the cost to be able to patent it. I mean, if it's not valuable enough for you to pay the cost to patent it, then it's not valuable enough, right?
You also invest in your own ideas, having to pay up that patent versus having to look for investors and people out there. But you putting your own money on your own ideas sort of legitimizes the invention, I guess.
Yeah, and then another issue that they have is this concept of the patent troll. Now, if you think about an invention, you can invent something without actually producing the invention. You can come up with an idea for a better mousetrap. You are able to conceive of it, and you know exactly how to build it, and you can design it, and you can put it on paper.
Yeah.
But you don't actually have to produce that better mousetrap before you go and patent that idea. And so what we have are companies out there who produce patents, or they buy patents from other people, and then what they do is they just sit on them. And they wait around for other companies to inadvertently infringe upon that patent that they now hold. And that means they can then go after that company, and they can take them to court and threaten to sue them.
So, Ms. G, in this case, you're saying there's people who just literally document an idea and patent it.
That's right, yes.
That's it.
Well, that's it. Let's say you're an inventor and you know how to build something, but you don't have the resources. Then you're not going to be able to produce it. That's fine.
Yeah.
Because you've got your invention and you want to be able to protect that invention.
Yeah.
But this is what happens mostly.
Yeah.
Even Centbee has patents that we haven't commercialized. We want to make sure that they are registered and there's a patent for them, so that one day when we do want to create that product, then we've got it waiting for us, and we've really got it patent protected.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of patents out there that haven't actually been produced. There's no software, there's no tool, there's no item like that. And so what you can then do, and what these companies do, what we call patent trolls, is they will then go and look around in the market to see who's infringing on that copyright or trademark or patent, and then they will go and take legal action against them. And most often they will try and settle out of court, because if you go and sue somebody for patent infringement, that costs a heck of a lot of money to defend.
So, Kyle, your dad's still bringing home those big fat lawyer paychecks?
And then what happens is these companies manage to threaten enough so that the person who's being accused of infringing that patent eventually decides to settle out of court for whatever they can afford.
Sounds like a shakedown, doesn't it, Director?
So we can just call them patent hustlers, Mr. G.
Yes.
I'm sure there is also like legit inventions, like maybe there isn't funding,
Yes.
You just shelve that idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is legit. Now we're talking about the hustlers.
That's their business model, really, is that they're going to now go and bully people into trying to squeeze some...
pay up.
Pay up, the mafia, the patent mafia. Oftentimes they are accusing companies of infringing patents that they know aren't infringing them. So a lot of time patents are quite ambiguous.
Yeah.
Even though they're supposed to be very clear and explicit. Sometimes an invention can cover a lot of different things, and there have been many times in history different examples. Amazon had this one where they had a copyright or patent on the one-click ordering.
Oh yeah.
And so you could go onto Amazon.com and you can hit the button and you buy it immediately.
Yeah.
And they patented that idea. And another company, I forget who it was, also had one-click, and Amazon went after them. So you can see how, I mean, patent for a one-click ordering button, you know, you would think to yourself, crumbs, you know, I mean, that seems pretty basic and obvious, right? But they got the patent. Now they can go after companies who have a one-click button to order, and they can go and sue them.
Yeah.
And as I said, you know, they always hope, these patent troll companies that hold these patents, they always hope that they're not going to have to take it to court, because that's a lot of money, and that they can just scare the person who's being accused of that to just pony up.
Hand over the milk money, Weaver.
Yeah, so that's the issue. Those are the things that Jack Dorsey and people who are against this idea of patents, these are the issues that they have. They think that it's anti-competitive because it means that people can't take that idea and then build upon it, at least not immediately.
Yeah.
Of course, after the expiry, sure, but not immediately. They also think that it's unfair to inventors because now you are forced to go and pay the money to go and register your patent and pay the lawyers to do all the paperwork and all that. And then, of course, they have this issue with people who then just purposely go out and buy patents and hold patents and create patents so that they can go and, in some cases, unfairly attack people for so-called infringing on their invention.
Yeah.
And then they can go and hustle them for cash. So these are the things that Jack Dorsey and people who don't like patents, they think that if we could just eliminate this, then the world would be a much more free, open, happy, you know, lovey-dovey, hippie commune.
Simplify, man.
After all his inventions and creations,
Yeah,
he thinks that the IP law must be just deleted.
yes, well, that's the irony, right? Because Block has patents, especially on blockchain and that.
He's part of COPA,
Yes, yeah,
but he actually started it.
yeah.
And we need to also understand what is COPA, because
Right.
I'm sure a lot of people don't know what COPA is out there.
Jack Dorsey co-founded an organization called the Crypto Open Patent Alliance.
Yeah.
And the whole purpose of that organization is to ensure that technologies that are created on blockchain don't get owned and controlled by patent trolls. Jack Dorsey and other companies like Kraken, they think that it's very important to make sure that blockchain technologies remain open to the world. Everybody can use them. They believe strongly that blockchain is going to be something that changes the world. They just can't explain how, because they don't understand Satoshi's vision. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to make sure that nobody patents anything on the blockchain. And if there are any patents, they are owned by the collective and then can be freely used by any developer who wants to build a wallet or a new node, a new DeFi product or anything like that. So this Crypto Open Patent Alliance, the reason why it's famous is because not so many months ago there was a very famous court case where the COPA members are trying to sue one of the largest blockchain patent holders in the world, somebody that we've mentioned many times on the show, Dr. Craig Wright.
Yeah.
And there was a very high profile case about that.
It's quite funny, Mr. G, because we're talking about these guys who have all these platforms that they have patented. I mean, I'm sure Facebook, you wouldn't just copy it and just knock it off and just run a software and, you know?
Yeah.
It's literally a company that's protected by these laws.
So this is now something that is trying to now make sure that nobody can patent any kind of new novel technology on top of blockchain. Now, what's interesting about the Bitcoin blockchain, when Satoshi first developed it, is he made it an open source protocol.
Yeah.
That meant that anybody can go and build on top of that without getting any permission. Bitcoin was never patented, and that's why we have got many different kinds of blockchains out there.
I think that's where the issue was, Mr. G. This was supposed to be patented like from onset.
Well, the thing about patenting something is that when you patent something, it means that you limit access to it.
True.
And Satoshi Nakamoto wanted people to take on Bitcoin and develop on it.
Use it.
But the thing about Bitcoin is that it's a very basic, simple, raw protocol, if you think about it. This network technology that just determines how information moves around on this network. And of course, in the Bitcoin case, it's transactional information. So the blockchain itself, the Bitcoin blockchain, is very simple. But That doesn't mean now that you can't go and invent new things for Bitcoin blockchain or any other blockchain.
Yeah.
Because it's a protocol, it means that all the work now to be done is going to be built on top of that protocol, just like the internet.
Yes.
You know, when you look at the internet protocol, it's just a basic network protocol that determines how information moves around a network.
Yeah.
But there are so many new inventions that have been built on top of the internet protocol that has made it so useful to us. It's accessible it's useful. And the reason why it's accessible and useful is because people have built new inventions using the internet protocol.
Yeah.
And without those people inventing things for us to use, we wouldn't have a nice, useful internet that's just makes our lives so much better.
Yeah.
Because the thing about inventing is that if you're going to spend all the effort and all the time and all the money researching and developing and sweating and bleeding over this invention,
Sleepless nights.
if you do that and somebody can just take your invention, why do you want to go and put yourself out there and waste all that time?
That would be like, a very dry world, because there wouldn't be any form of innovation or motivation.
Because there's no reason you wouldn't get a reward. So the thing about the Bitcoin blockchain is that's what it is. It's a foundation. You know, we often talk about it's a foundational layer. It's the foundation that the blockchain universe is going to be built upon.
Yeah.
We want inventors to come along and put effort into building unique inventions on top of the blockchain to make it cool for us and useful to us, just like the internet. We need inventors who know that the effort is going to be paid off. You know what I mean?
I mean, your intel is protected.
Yes, exactly. So the funny thing about COPA, though, is that they want to try and eliminate that. They want to make sure that there are no novel patented inventions that people can have on blockchain. That if you're an inventor and you want to come up with a new way of processing transactions or maybe a new kind of financial product on the blockchain, you are not going to be able to patent any of your stuff because COPA is going to be wanting to eliminate your patents. They don't want you to be a patent troll or even in their warped way of thinking, remove competitiveness from the whole space. But of course, as we've said already, you know, patents actually stimulate creativity and innovation because you can't just go and knock off somebody else's idea.
Patents are the backbone of innovation because as an innovator, you want at least, the comfort of knowing that your idea can be protected and it's still yours even if it's put out there,
That's right.
Yeah.
If an inventor doesn't have a way to protect their property, intellectual property, they're not going to put the effort into producing that.
There's no point.
That's right.
Yeah.
So COPA is this organization trying to now stop people patenting technologies. And of course, it's completely counterproductive. It means that if you are an innovator and you want to go and build interesting, cool things for blockchain and you want to patent your ideas so that you can benefit from the effort, well, COPA is going to be on your case. They're going to try and sue you and they're going to try and give you a hard time, just like they have done others, and specifically Dr. Craig Wright.
Yeah.
Good luck to them. But thankfully, just because they are complaining about it and moaning about it, it doesn't mean that IP law and patent law is going to go away anytime soon. Obviously, we do have problems with the system. It's not like it's a perfect system.
Can get better, of course, yeah.
It can be improved.
Yeah.
I mean, the patent trolls and that, maybe there's a way to stop that sort of thing happening. At least the frivolous lawsuit aspect of it, not the genuine infringement issue.
Yeah.
Rather just trying to bully people.
Because it seems like, the burning issue on their side is actually the patent trolls more than anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about Dr. Craig Wright, he does have an enormous number of incredibly novel and interesting and useful innovations and inventions and patents. I mean, thousands of them. What's great about BSV, though, and this is important to know, if you are a developer and you want a scalable blockchain, of course, Bitcoin SV is that scalable blockchain.
Yep.
But it's also those patents that have been created with novel technologies, they're available on the Bitcoin SV blockchain. There is an open BSV license. And so if you are wanting to use some of those innovations, those novel patents that have been created around the BSV blockchain, well, you can do that because that's the deal with the open BSV license. Come on to BSV and use it. If you don't use BSV and you use a different blockchain, well, yes, you're going to have to fork up a license fee or something.
That's funny, Mr. G, because I'm thinking that for Craig to have so many patents, it sort of also shows, the thought process that was behind all these ideas that he had regarding the blockchain.
Yeah, he's so far ahead.
Far ahead.
You know, people are still trying to figure out the blockchain.
Yeah, he's already like in there, already created something that we haven't even came across.
Exactly, years ahead. And eventually we're going to be unearthing all the things that he's been doing.
Yeah.
We're excited about it. And also we are excited about the fact that we can go and invent something new for the blockchain that hasn't been done before, that's novel. And we can then go and protect that and benefit from that.
Yeah, Mr. G, but you mentioned his patents are accessible, like to people who are developing on the BSV blockchain.
Yeah.
So that means, like, if you're a BSV developer, you don't have to pay a fee.
That's right. Exactly.
That's pretty awesome because it somehow also touches on the whole Open Patent Alliance vibes. Because if Craig is saying people out there can use them, of course, respecting and abiding by the original idea, then we don't need COPA. We really don't.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's the interesting thing about patents as well, is that they are defensive.
Yeah.
So what you can do is you can have a patent that is restricted to a certain thing. And you can say, you can use this for free, but you have to also use it here.
Yeah.
With these BSV patents, that's the idea. It's to defend the BSV protocol.
Yeah.
And as a patent holder, because it's your property, you've got every right to do that.
Yeah.
As a BSV developer,
Yeah.
you can feel confident that you're going to have great inventions, great novel ideas, and freely available on BSV.
So, yeah, like we said, Ms. G, I mean, as we having this discussion, I'm clearly seeing that there's more benefits to, you know, patents versus what Jack is saying.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, like, you know, he's overlooking like a lot of aspects of this that, you know, we should be highlighting.
Yes, I mean, if you just think about patents, you know, he talks about it being something that stifles innovation. Patents actually stimulate innovation because you can't just knock off somebody else's invention. You have to go and think of something brand new.
Yeah.
And that is, as you were saying, that is what makes the world go round. We need new ideas. You know, one of the problems with AI today, when we look at AI, is all it's doing is it's just sort of regurgitating old ideas.
That's what it is.
It takes other people's music, other people's writings, other people's artworks, and it just kind of mishmashes them and repurposes them.
Yeah.
But what innovation does is it creates something out of nothing. An idea that can come, a novel idea, completely unique, that's really exclusive to the human potential and human spirit.
Facts.
And so what we want to do is we want to encourage innovators to be able to come up with new ideas. We want new ideas. That is what keeps the world moving, is new ideas.
Yeah.
And so patents stimulate new ideas because they force you to come up with something novel and innovative. It's far from stifling innovation.
Yeah.
It also attracts investment because if you are a company, a startup, an entrepreneur, and you've come up with an idea, if you want to go and raise money for that idea, and you go to an investor, they're going to ask you, is this idea of yours patented?
Why aren't you telling me you've got something proprietary or a patent or a technology or software no one can emulate?
I hope you do get your patent, and I wish you good luck. Without having it, I feel that you're going to really have a struggle.
Don't have a patent, don't have a finished sample, don't have experience.
Unless you have a patent or some proprietary technology, you're going to be in trouble. I'm out.
I'm out.
I'm out.
Because they know that if it's patented, then it's secure. And they know that they've got rights to that, and they're going to be more willing to invest in your company.
Yeah.
So patents give confidence to investors. It also shares knowledge, because when you create your patent, you have to describe it fully, unambiguously, with prior examples of art and of methodologies and how you got to that process. And once that patent expires, which is only after a few years, then anybody can take that and go and have a clear specification on how to recreate that innovation and then be able to add their new things to it or come up with new ideas. So patents are a wonderful way to share knowledge. It's not just an idea like a secret recipe that's locked in a drawer and then dies with the owner.
Like KFC.
Yes, this is published for the world to see. So patents actually contribute to the world's knowledge, contributes to the giant database of ideas.
For real, Mr. G, because, I mean, for it to be public like that, it also shows that here's an idea that people can explore.
Yeah.
But this idea of saying it limits like innovation or creativity, it's a myth.
And then also, finally, it's the only way that as a small creator, somebody that doesn't have a big budget, where you can go and protect your ideas from the big guy. It doesn't matter how big you are, how much money you have, and how much power you have. You can't go and steal somebody's idea.
Yeah.
So it's a great way to protect the little guy.
Yeah.
So, Jack, I think is misguided. It almost seems like he's got an ulterior motive, because, he's working on AI and payments and stuff, and he doesn't want people, first of all, stopping him from doing what he wants to do with pesky patent laws and IP laws. Come on, Jack.
Sneaky.
It's a little bit transparent there, what you're up to. So I mean that's the reality. I hope Jack's dream doesn't come true.
It won't, Miss G, because remember, what makes the world go around is creators, innovators, the shapeshifters, man.
Yes, exactly. And it's not just good enough having an idea, you've got to execute.
Yeah.
So you might have great ideas, but you just can't execute those ideas. That's very important as well.
Yeah.
So develop skills. It's not just about an idea. You want to realize that idea if you've got it. But at least if you've got the idea, now you have a way of protecting that.
Oh man, at least
Cool.
like we clued up about IP stuff now, man. Thanks for that, Miss G. That was a dope unfold. Jack has it all twisted up, man. He should be checking out the Centbee show anyway. So yeah, guys, remember to subscribe, show some love, yeah? Mobile Money on fire. Yeah, Miss G, we're gonna be stepping into this week's socials. Yeah, our first one comes from Billy Shares, and they're saying, I love the way people saying XRP is going to run the banking system. Haha, that's a joke. But BSV can run the whole financial system and more.
Yes, XRP, Ripple, they have always tried to tackle the, I guess, interbank messaging payment system, kind of like SWIFT. They want to become a new payment system for the world's banks, and they've been trying that. But of course, they don't scale either.
Yeah.
Let alone the shadowy past and, pre-mines and all that kind of stuff. XRP is trying to do what BSV is already doing. So
Billy Shares knows the truth, man.
Yes, Billy Shares knows. So that's the thing. BSV is literally the world's only blockchain that can massively scale. And Terranode, which is the new node implementation, is demonstrating that at over 1 million transactions per second. Check out our interview with Siggy Oscarson, who was the director of Terranode. He broke down Terranode for us and gave us all the inside info on what's going on at Terranode.
Yeah.
That's a Bitcoin Association initiative. And it's there to prove Satoshi Nakamoto right, that Bitcoin doesn't reach a scaling ceiling. Unfortunately, there's no proof and doesn't look like there's any hope for XRP and Ripple ever achieving 1 million transactions per second.
We're waiting for them on the BSV side, yo.
Yeah.
Thanks, Billy. Our second one comes from Crypto Phenom, and they're saying another awesome episode of the Centbee show. They nailed it with Web3 and NFT discussions, especially with how it all ties into the real utility of Bitcoin. Definitely seeing the bigger picture now. Looking forward to more deep dives like this.
Awesome. And thanks, Crypto Phenom. Thanks for the great comment there. And he's referring, or she, or they.
Yeah.
It's referring to a show we did about Web3, which is our last show, in fact, 72.
Yeah.
So we'll link that in the description. And there we break down this world of Web3, NFTs, and how BSV is going to be the only blockchain, of course, that can facilitate this Web3 universe.
Straight up. Thanks, Crypto. Our last one comes from BSV Universe. And they're saying definitely worth checking out the Centbee show.
Yes. See, BSV Universe knows the Centbee show is where it's at. If you really want to understand Bitcoin, if you want to understand what Satoshi was getting at and where he was going with his ideas, this is the show to watch because that's what we're about.
Facts only, Mr. G.
And we're excited about it, and we believe 100% that Satoshi got it right and everybody else is trying to catch up, and he is miles ahead in the future.
Eons, Mr. G.
That's right. And it's going to take forever for everybody else to eventually catch up.
Yeah.
Why bother? Why waste your time with all these dead-end projects? Just come back to Satoshi, come back to Bitcoin. Get rid of all your thoughts around digital gold and investments. That's all just a pipe dream.
For real, hey. Because, oh man, there's just no sense on that side, Mr. G.
Yeah, there's no sense. But anyway, thanks for the comments. Thanks for dropping those. Please give us more questions, give us more comments. We'll give you a shout out, and we're excited to answer.
Sure. Thanks for that, BSV Universe. Ms. G?
Yo.
I think we've actually come to the end of our show.
Cool, Kage. Well, that was the IP breakdown, the patent breakdown, something that is definitely very pertinent and relevant to the blockchain space. And we were glad to be able to have Jack Dorsey's tweet or post could light a fire under us and make us want to talk about it. So thanks, Jack. But we think that your issues and your efforts are probably in vain. It's unlikely that there's going to be any abolishment of any IP laws and patent laws and copyright laws anytime soon. So you're just going to have to cope harder and invent harder. If you want to beat Satoshi, then you're just going to have to use your brains. You can't use your corporate muscle and your celeb status.
Because that's literally what he's doing now, man.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, we don't want to rag off Jack. We want Jack to comment down below if you like the show, Jack. So you tell us you're learning something. Anyway, we want to thank all of you for joining us here today on the Centbee Show. Please come back soon. We have to come up with some jokes. I'll go on.
Okay.
Why did BTC skip the party?
I don't know why.
It was too busy crashing the market.